Vanakkam. Welcome to this course on classics in neuroscience. We have been looking at learning and memory. This is perhaps the last video in our series of discussions on the memory. Today we will be discussing the work of Brenda Milner and patient HM. In this video we will look at memory and the role of hippocampus in memory and the work of Brenda Milner on patient HM. So, Brenda Milner was born in England. She studied psychology under the guidance of Oliver Zangwill. She did her graduate studies with Donald Hebb, the famous Donald Hebb. She worked with Wilder Penfield on psychological testing of patients whose brain regions were removed to the behavioral changes due to removal of these brain regions. So, essentially she had some experience in this field. Remember also she is the wife of Peter Milner, whose work we discussed previously in the previous week. We have discussed, or in the previous set of videos we have discussed the work of Peter Milner. So, Brenda Milner was married to Peter Milner. So, around the time when Scoville was scouting for a psychologist to study patient HM, Brenda Milner was approached by Scoville to perform some psychological testing on patient HM, and they published their first results in 1957. The title of this paper is Loss of Recent Memory After Bilateral Hippocampal Lesions, 1957. Scoville also released a statement on subsequent concerns about the ethics of this procedure that he performed on patient HM, because he suggested he had plenty of experience in performing neurosurgery, but most of his patients were patients of psychosis, schizophrenia and those types. In this case, the patient was having epilepsy and he had some experience that suggested, so anecdotal experience that suggested to him that removal of hippocampal formation sometimes reduced epilepsy. In some cases he had some, more than epilepsy he had found this data in psychosis. So, he had performed these type of fractional lobotomies in schizophrenic patients. So, he wanted to observe what happens when you partially resect other parts of the brain. Will it produce better results? And he also was interested in exploring the limbic lobe. So, can we extend this undercutting to destroying some parts of mesial temporal cortex bilaterally? He studied this in 30 patients, almost all of who had psychosis, unlike HM who had epilepsy. Fundamental difference. This is something that you need to keep in mind as we study. In a subset of 10 patients, Milner reported results of psychological testing that was carried out. In these 10 patients, there was no neurological deficits or gross changes in personality. Also, some of these were psychosis patients. The resections were limited to medial portions of the temporal lobe, and that had practically no therapeutic effect. In patients who were like HM, where resection was very big, so extensive that major portions of the hippocampal complex were bilaterally removed, there was memory loss. But there is a difference. In those patients who was similar to patient HM, those other patients were patients of psychosis. So, there was practically no way for anyone to distinguish between the effect of surgery or the effect of psychosis itself. Memory loss, did it happen because of surgery or is that because of psychosis itself? Also, there was no pre-surgical test that was done on them, because it was practically impossible to execute such tests before the surgery, because the patients were having severe psychosis. So, before this surgery, HM was able to remember numbers He was also able to remember 3-figure numbers until his attention was not diverted. But when his attention was diverted, or a pair of unrelated words were given to him and then his attention was diverted, he was not able to remember that. Such was the severity of his memory loss. Similarly, Penfield and Milner also described 2 patients with memory loss and removal of the hippocampal complex from one side, but later found that hippocampus on the other side was also damaged, perhaps by mistake. This essentially suggested that Lashley, who claimed that a particular brain region could not be associated with a particular type of memory, was disproved. HM's studies, or studies performed on HM, essentially disproved this idea that a particular type of memory can be localized to a particular region of the brain, suggesting that hippocampus was the seat of short-term memory. So, this field, the field of modern cognitive neuroscience that was originally founded by Donald Hebb, also had 2 co-founders, Brenda Milner, the psychologist, but also patient HM. HM passed away at the age of 82 in 2008. Finally, his name was revealed to be Henry Gustav Molaison, and his obituary in the New York Times read as HM as the most important patient in the history of brain science. As a participant in hundreds of studies, he helped scientists understand the biology of learning, memory and physical dexterity, as well as the fragile nature of human identity. These are the crucial references that we used in this set of videos. The original work by Donald Hebb, Pepys article, Pusey and Kluwer article, McLean article, Scoville and Milner article. All of these fantastic papers, all of them worth going through on your own. With this, we come to the end of this video and the end of this week's content. In this video, we looked at memory and the hippocampus and the work of Brenda Milner on patient HM. With this, we end this video. Thank you for your attention.